This is the Untold Italy travel podcast, and you are listening to episode number 160.
Ciao a tutti and benvenuti to Untold Italy, the travel podcast where you go to the towns and villages, mountains and lakes, hills and coastlines of Bella Italia. Each week, your host, Katy Clarke, takes you on a journey in search of magical landscapes, history, culture, wine, gelato, and, of course, a whole lot of pasta. If you're dreaming of Italy and planning future adventures there, you've come to the right place.
Ciao, hi everyone. Do I have a treat for you today? And I do hope you're not hungry just now, because you will be once this episode is over. Sorry, but actually not that sorry, because today I have one of our most popular guests back on the show to talk to you about the dishes that you can try on one of the world's most famous and definitely most beautiful islands, and that of course is Capri. Yes, my lovely friend Holly from food experiences company Michelangelo Capri is back to get our taste buds tingling. Now, what I love about this chat is that despite being so close to Naples, which is obviously a vibrant foodie city renowned throughout the world, Capri has its own cuisine, dishes and identity, which the people of the island are so very proud of. And it's a culture that runs deep with seasons and changes as people come and go throughout the year. I love exploring these ideas with Holly because it's in such stark contrast to the way most people visit the island, quickly for a day trip. So to truly appreciate Capri, its people, culture and cuisine, you really need to stay for a few days. And that's why we've collaborated to build the ultimate Capri experience that takes in the island and all its magic. I'll explain a little more at the end of this episode, but for now, let's hear from Holly about what you can eat when you go to Capri. Ciao, Holly. Welcome back to the Untold Italy podcast.
Ciao, Katy. Thank you for having me, of course.
So great to hear your voice again, and even better now that we've finally met in person, not once, but twice. Amazing.
I know, can you believe it? And the craziness of summer in Capri and then in summer, almost summer, in Australia.
I know, it was so good to finally meet you in person. For anyone who's been listening along to Untold Italy for a while, Holly and I met in the deepest, darkest interwebs of the pandemic in 2020, and we forged a really nice friendship, and it was just so great to go and meet her and her family, and very briefly, because Capri is super busy, and then we had a beautiful lunch together later last year. But one of those things, an amazing thing about this podcast is it's brought a lot of people together, and I really love chatting with Holly and excited to have another chat with her again today. Now, before we get started on our discussion about the amazing food of Capri, Holly, you told everyone the full romantic story about how you came to be on the island on episode 42 of Untold Italy, but can you quickly remind our listeners how a feisty Australian lady came to be living on this beautiful island and what you do there now?
Alrighty then. Yes, like you said, I had told in a very comprehensive way the long story of how Gianluca and I met, but let's put it very specifically to what we're talking about today. In short, I was dining in his restaurant, which was in the center of Capri, back in 2013. So it's actually 10 years since we first met this year. And I was on a solo trip, and it was basically food, wine, a little bit of limoncello courage, and even a little bit of spiritual help from Gianluca's papa that we can thank for our meeting. So I feel like I can talk about the food of the island in a different sense, in that it's all-encompassing, as I owe it to the island food and Gianluca's restaurant for our meeting. I guess I also should explain a little bit about Gianluca's family prior to us meeting, also to put in context the island cuisine and how it's evolved, over time. So a little bit of background about Gianluca. Clearly, I'm the Australian. Gianluca is actually Caprese born and raised, and he's lived on the island his whole entire life. And his grandparents were primarily involved in agriculture and fishing, which is much like much of the island was prior to the influx of tourism. They raised livestock on the island, etc. And Gianluca's father, for example, was a fisherman and a carpenter. However, when tourism started to rise to be, the main source of income on the island, there was an increased demand for chefs and people to work in the hospitality industry in the 60s and 70s, for example. And like many other of the residents, Gianluca's father also retrained and became a chef, and he worked at restaurants at the beach clubs in Marina Piccola specifically, where Gianluca's family lived, where Gianluca grew up. He was very lucky to grow up. Now my kids are equally lucky to spend their summer beach days down at the local beach down at Marina Piccola with Nonna. And I guess that's his family in a very brief way, his family's introduction to food on the island. And look, his brother, for example, he followed in his father's footsteps. He's a chef and a fisherman, and his cousins likewise followed the pathway to, hospitality. And now in their family specifically, there are many chefs in the kitchen, I'll say that. And it's also trickled down to the next generation. So while Gianluca himself, when he grew up, he actually diverged from the family trend and he began an electronic business, which he ran on the island for 20 years, which is completely, out of the norm for his family. But it was actually his father's passing that led him to change direction and enter the restaurant world. He actually opened Michelangelo, which was the name of his restaurant, with his brother, and it was in memory of his father. So Michelangelo, the name actually translates to Michele, which was the name of Gianluca's father, who is now with the Angels. So it's Michele with the Angels. And, they hoped in opening the restaurant that they would be able to keep his father's legacy alive and continue by sharing their family recipes and their island hospitality with the world. So it's a beautiful backstory, and how obviously a story that I absolutely had no idea about when I walked through the door in 2013 when I was dining there for an evening meal. I also wasn't to know, that the significance, which is beautiful, of how we came to meet as well, which has to do spiritually with his father, because he believed when I walked through the door and asked for my table for one, he said that he immediately got a feeling that his father had sent me. And so he felt like he had to talk to me, and so that's how it came about. We didn't speak each other's language, but through food and Gianluca's entertaining ways of trying to talk to me, here we are. It's beautiful. And I'll say that, the fact that we didn't speak each other's language, it really was food. Lots of our first memories are revolved around food. Our first, I could tell so many stories. I mean, obviously now we run a cooking class. I'll go into that a little bit later, but I love telling stories about the specific dishes and how they related to our, relationship growing and our family growing. But I'll fast forward a lot. So he had the restaurant, Michelangelo. We met in 2013. In 2014, we married. And then I was thrust into the restaurant business by marriage. It was very far away from what I did in Australia. So before I was in the corporate world, I was a lawyer, and then I, had my own business. And I'll say this, I dined out a lot, but let's say I had a very different relationship to food. And I say that for the specificness of this, podcast, is that, like, don't get me wrong, I've always loved food. However, I rarely cooked it, or I rarely prepared food in my kitchen. I lived a fast-paced corporate life in the city. I was dining out a lot with colleagues and clients and family and friends. And look, I was an amazing cheese board preparer. I had many toasted sandwiches in my repertoire, which we call jaffles in Australia. I also had one signature spaghetti bolognese that I am so embarrassed that I cooked for Gianluca on his very first visit to Australia. He was very humble. He ate it all. He even complimented me. But after I moved to Capri and saw how he makes fresh pasta tagliatelle with his ragu bolognese, okay, I stand corrected and I cringe now when I think about that meal. So maybe I'll say that I felt guilty now that I look back on my life before, that I didn't place enough emphasis on my food sources, on my connection to health and vitality, and also what it meant as an experience, etc., eating in general, food, ingredients. And I guess, life presents us with many sliding door moments, and it was unimaginable unimaginable to me prior to meeting Gianluca that my life could take such a turn and that food would actually literally become the center of my life.
Oh, no, this is honestly, everyone, it's one of the best real life stories ever. So if you want to hear the extended version of Holly and Gianluca's story, go ahead and listen to episode number 42 because it's a cracker. We loved it. Now, listeners, we're going to have a chat about what you can eat when you go to Capri because like everywhere in Italy, the cuisine is quite different, even from the mainland, which is just 40 kilometres away. And let me tell you, after all that exploring, walking and swimming that you're going to do on Capri, you're going to be pretty hungry, aren't you, Holly?
Most definitely. Look, in Italy in general, food is central to everything about life, daily life, festive celebrations, etc. They all revolve around food. And maybe some other related activities such as fashion, family, food, friends, they're all interrelated. And I guess, food also evokes all those senses. It's an experience. It's all encompassing. So, if a plate is visually pleasing but not tasty, you're going to remember those things. You're going to remember smells, tastes, aromas, textures, it's all a part of your experience. And if you're coming to a vacation destination, of course, you're here for the experiences. You're here for the tastes. You want to savor those memories. And food has that ability to, really, you can visualize or take you back to those times when you're sitting on a beach table, seaside, and eating a plate of spaghetti alla vongole. It has that ability to really bring you back to your holiday and bring back those beautiful memories. So yes, definitely. Food is a central part of both, Italian living and a part of any vacation to the island. So I guess for me, I've got to say a couple of things first. I'll just go back to what we're doing now because I didn't mention before that we now actually have closed Michelangelo. And we have now opened a food experience business in our garden villa in Anacapri. So we hold cooking classes, degustation meals, cheese, wine, and extra virgin olive oil tastings, and gelato and sorbet workshops. And I guess why I wanted to mention this is because it's changed my journey again from not being involved in the restaurant business specifically to now moving towards a more boutique offering, I guess, but growing your own food. So even another intricate step of what we were doing now in the food scene is we're growing things from either, seeds or plants. And I've got to say that on the food journey I've come along with Gianluca, I think this is the best and most rewarding of all is eating produce that you've actually planted, cared for, grown, harvested yourself, and it's not just the taste. And the taste, yes, explosion. I can 100% tell you that the food that we've grown in our garden is absolutely another world on the taste spectrum. But it's also the experiences that are involved in that, it's from spending time with your family, our children, they're fully involved. They'll come and harvest with us. It's educating them. It's like, also a part of, the sustainability of the island and, contributing to a better way of life. So for me, it's been empowering, enlightening. And, I think that, I guess, is one part that I do absolutely love is now that our involvement with food is to another level, literally growing the food. And we get to share those bounties with people who come and visit us.
I know, and I was so lucky and thrilled to see that garden in person, having had a few virtual tours over the preceding months, and it is a beautiful, verdant, abundant, gorgeous garden, and it's so seasonal, and I just loved the way that you described it. It's like, look, this is what's growing now, this is what's in season when you're here. It was so exciting. The tomatoes are coming.
Oh my gosh, it's so fun. And even the planning aspect. So right now, Gianluca and the gardener are planning what they're going to plant where, and he's actually in the garden today. He's getting his little greenhouse ready for the basil seeds he's going to plant. We've also already put in the ground, we have our fava beans and peas that are going to be ready for Pasqua. The cuisine in Italy generally, like you mentioned, it is regional and it is seasonal. You use what you have that's abundant at the time. So, in winter, right now, we're eating, for example, yesterday I had a pasta with spinach and broccoli. I mean, that was just straight from the garden, spinach and broccoli. We're not eating our tomato pasta right now when I say fresh tomatoes, but we do, by the way, we bottle up our tomatoes and we get to eat our garden tomatoes year round, which we also sell and ship. But yeah, so this, we eat what's in season, or if not in season, what we have preserved. so that we can preserve the freshness of the summer taste and eat it in winter. So, right now we're enjoying broccoli, escarols, spinaches, fennel, onions. And, in spring, you have your fava beans, your peas, lettuces, zucchini flowers. In summer, you've got those delicious and sweet yet rich, tomatoes that the volcanic soil of the south, impacts. And, eggplants, peppers, cucumbers, melons, chilies, then we go to autumn and we've got pumpkins. So, there is a dish for every season. And as a little way of example for it to, I guess, stress this seasonal concept, a parmigiana melanzana, a famous dish in Capri in the summer season. In the summer season, we use the eggplant, the melanzana. However, in the fall, we can make a parmigiana di zucca, which is a parmigiana with pumpkin. In the winter, we do it with carciofi, which is artichokes. And then in the spring, we will do it with zucchini, so parmigiana di zucchini. So, it's interesting that like one dish is completely 4 seasons.
And my mother-in-law actually made the zucchini parmigiana last weekend. It was so good. She's actually from the mainland, but I don't know, they must be born with some sort of skill or magic in their fingers, because this was the most amazing thing I've ever eaten. Well, not for a long time anyway. So we had some amazing meals last year. It was so good though. I love it. And I love the fact that you can change it up and switch it out and it still tastes delicious.
That is a very delicious and versatile dish. The only other thing before we actually get into the Caprese cuisine part of this podcast, the only thing I'll say is I did actually read Maria Pasquale's book, How to Be Italian, and I just love like this sentence that she writes in the book, that Italians have a deep love affair with food. And I've got to say that, like, I'm actually a little nervous talking about food not being Italian. And obviously, it's only over 10 years that I have really come on this journey. I have sat down in the piazza with Gianluca and some of his friends and, to say I've heard debates that are like full-fledged, hand-waving arguments about how a recipe must, be cooked. And, it's passion.
Yeah.
It is passion, and it's serious business. They have a deep love affair with food. From the moment we wake up, Gianluca's already planning what we're eating for lunch and dinner. And there's a celebration on the weekend. It's happening. The preparation is happening during the week. And, yes, there are a lot of cuisine that he uses, like his family recipes that are passed down through the generations. But another thing I've also learned coming along this journey with him is that when you grow your own food, you also need to have a bit of flexibility with your recipes because you're using what you have in abundance at any particular time. So he will create a lot of different dishes using whatever you have or preserve in different ways. Or at the moment, we have an abundance of citrus right now. Everything from grapefruit, oranges, we have our lemons, of course. And so we're making sorbet right now. He's juicing. He's doing all sorts of things with his citrus. And I just love it. He's very creative in what he does. So,
and he's using everything. Absolutely. There's no wastage.
No waste. That's also an important thing to talk about in terms of cuisine here. In Italy, especially down south, there was a term, a reference saying cucina povera, which basically is using all parts of your food, your ingredients to make dishes. So there are some dishes in Capri that are very much based on this concept. For example, throwing one out there, a caprese caponata, which uses friselli, which typically back in the day was a stale bread. And that was a way of using bread that had gone past its, freshness, I guess, but still in a delicious way that made it edible.
We have a lot to learn. I think I don't know the full stats, but some of the food wastage that happens in Western Anglo-English-speaking countries is quite ridiculous. And given there are people in our countries that are hungry, I think we could do a lot to be a bit more considerate about how we eat and how just be a bit more thoughtful, I think, just be a bit more planning. It actually, makes me a little bit, I just get a bit cross if I have to throw food out, to be honest. So, we try and do that as much as we can, but we can always do a lot better. I'm not saying that we're perfect at all.
No, but I don't think anyone's expected to be perfect. No one is perfect in the world, but definitely if you are mindful, that is the first step, to take one step each day to either manage your food better or plan your meals or compost your food or whatever it might be. If everyone in the world was taking one step, we'd be a lot further advanced than we are in some aspects of food wastage.
Yeah, I think being conscious of it is definitely the first step.
Exactly.
If we all try a little bit, then we can make a difference.
No, I'm with you on that front. But anyway, so back to Capri. So now I've spoken about in general, our food in Italy, I guess. Again, like I said, so yeah, distinctly regional. You're not going to find in Capri on any of the menus, you're not going to find a traditional Roman dish such as, carbonara or your cacio e pepe. You're not going to find, other dishes that you specifically are connected to another region of Italy. So what have we got in Capri's cuisine? Okay, this small, almost 10 and a bit square kilometre island has created a big name for itself in some of its more internationally renowned dishes. So what comes to mind to me initially when we're going to be talking about Capri's, cuisine are the dishes with Capri in its name. So Capri, okay, Caprese means from Capri. Now, what dish first comes to mind is the famous salad, Insalata Caprese.
Yum.
Okay, so this is one of the most famous salads in the world. We enjoy these three dishes. So I'll say the three dishes with caprese in their name. Insalata Caprese, which is antipasti. Then we have ravioli caprese, which is the famous pasta, which is a primi piatti, and torta caprese, which is the dolce, the famous dolce. And these three dishes form actually part of our most popular cooking class menu called the Caprese Masterclass. And I love talking about these three dishes, also because they are very intricately involved, like I said at the very start of the podcast, in Gianluca and I's life here on the island. And I'll tell you some little stories why. But I guess the first thing I'll say is that Insalata Caprese, if you think about the most famous salads in the world, what do you think comes up?
Well, I think of mozzarella and tomatoes and basil.
Yes, so this is the Caprese salad. But if you were to think of what is the number one most famous salad in the world, what would you think of?
Caesar salad.
Yeah. No, okay. There is a couple of the famous salads. We've got the Caesar salad, we've got the garden salad, we have a Greek salad, but Caprese comes within the top 5. It has become that famous around the world, for a number of reasons. Okay, firstly, it personifies summer on a plate. It's literally delicious, rich, sweet tomatoes. You've then got your basil. I mean, by the way, it is only 5 ingredients, okay? So we have tomato, we have basil, we have mozzarella, extra virgin olive oil, and a pinch of salt. Now, many people, there are some optional ingredients, for example, a sprinkle of, dried oregano. Or, it might be presented on a bed of rocket lettuce or arugula. However, there is never any balsamic vinegar. So if you come to Capri and you ask for balsamic vinegar, firstly, it will not be served on the salad. And if you ask for it, you may, depending on your waiter, not get it. No, it's actually never been a part of the salad. I know it's something that, in Australia and America and England and basically in places outside of Italy, that people would definitely dress their Insalata Caprese salad with a drizzle of balsamic vinegar. Here, I say it's for this reason. Firstly, balsamic vinegar was never a part of the salad because it is not from this region. And we're going back to regional cooking. Secondly, it has a very strong flavor, so it overpowers. It's basically would become the feature of the dish. Whereas here, this dish is actually celebrating the delicious southern ingredients. I mean, the tomatoes of the south, the basil, the fragrant, homegrown, freshly torn basil that you can smell from the moment you tear it. The mozzarella. You're in we're in Campania, the capital, Puglia and Campania of mozzarella in the world.
Yeah, I think if anyone's in any doubt, they should perhaps get out a bottle of balsamic vinegar and a few sprigs of basil and just sort of have a taste and test it out, because it's so true. it just doesn't go, does it?
Everybody has, and everyone can put their own twist on any dish. But I will say, like my job in the cooking class, I love educating people on that, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. So I always say to people, go for it if you want to do it.
You do you.
But I say this is important to know the origins of why it's not actually a part of the ingredients, So that for me is more important. And also because, here we're, again, in the South, we have, and especially on the island, we have olive trees, and the olive oil is something that has been very much, a part of the root of Capri culture for a long time, and the South in general. And, a drizzle of a good extra virgin olive oil on a salad is everything. Here I know it's different in, again, different places outside of Italy, but, already made salad dressings are not much of a thing here. It's extra virgin olive oil, a pinch of salt. And it's important what type of extra virgin olive oil that you drizzle on a dish. Because, again, there is different olive cultivars that impact on the flavor of the oil, that then some are better on cooked food, some are better on raw food, some are better with particular dishes. And so everything, the food here, coming back down to the ingredients, simple as they are, there is, a reason for everything that they do with each ingredient. Anyway, Insalata Caprese, that is hands down probably the most famous dish worldwide, I guess, that originated from Capri. Oh, I will say also that, originally the mozzarella that was served with this dish was fior di latte, which is cow's milk mozzarella. However, now, in the trend towards the ever more popular buffalo mozzarella, you'll often find it served with buffalo mozzarella. Sometimes restaurants might have it both ways, and you can choose whether you want the fior di latte or the buffalo mozzarella. I will say there's many different stories as to how these dishes became evolved too. So a lot of them are conflicting. Other people claim it's theirs, etc. So I don't like. I generally go with the story that I like the best. I listen to all the stories, but of course there are some that are more exciting that I prefer, which goes to, like, for example, the torta caprese. When I talk about that, there, different families say that it was, their grandparents, etc. Or in a restaurant, there's another restaurant that will explain that, it was their chef who forgot an ingredient, and this is how it became involved. But, I like the story where it involved the mafia. I mean, of course, like. So anyway, Insalata Caprese, first dish. Second dish, ravioli caprese. Now, this is the island's pasta. I think this is absolutely delicious. This is like, a regular dish for us, not only in the summer, like all year round. Because again, like I said, if we're not using the fresh tomatoes, we're using our tomatoes that we've bottled up for winter. So for us, ravioli caprese is a year-round dish. It's also a very special Sunday family lunch dish. I'll say that in Capri, definitely. Now, what is it comprised of? It's fresh pasta. It's very easy to make. I mean, I say this now, and Gianluca always laughs when I say this to you. He's like, "How often have you actually made it?" Yeah, it's very easy to make. Well, I personally haven't made it, but have I seen it over 100,000 times? Yes, possibly. I feel that it's quite a simple dish. What I will say is, it's fresh pasta. It's pasta without eggs. Now, I would say, which is important, is because this is traditionally a summer dish, it's got to be, and it's also got quite a heavier, cheesy filling. They do a lighter pasta. So it's just, flour, water, salt, and a little bit of olive oil for your pasta. It's actually the filling and the sauce that makes it caprese. So the filling, you've got two different cheeses. One particularly is quite a traditional cheese in Capri, along with Campania in general, which is called caciotta. Yeah, caciotta. And then so we've got caciotta, Parmigiano Reggiano, egg, and there is a herb that grows wild on the island called marjoram. And so it's the marjoram and the caciotta that specifically make the filling, the caprese ingredients. And then we have the sauce, and the sauce is simple as well. Now, I'm sure I've mentioned before, but the cuisine here is very much about the ingredients. It's not about putting too many flavors all together at one time. In this particular dish, you've got 4 ingredients to make the pasta, 4 to make the filling, and 4 to make the sauce. The sauce is tomatoes, olive oil, onion, and basil. It's very simple and refreshing and delicious, So honestly, that pasta is absolutely one of my favorites, all-time favorites. And I'll say specifically, like everywhere, like every region has their little intricacies to their cooking. Ravioli caprese, you'll always find them one size, and it's always round. I've never seen a square ravioli caprese.
I'd like to see someone try.
Elsewhere, of course, as soon as dishes move from their origin, of course, they vary according to what you have available to you. So we do a lot of virtual cooking, and we always say to people, you don't need to buy new equipment to be able to cook the dishes. We can always substitute with whatever you've got. I remember back in the day when Gianluca first came to Australia and he made ravioli caprese for my family. And of course, we didn't have, the ravioli cutter for the ravioli caprese cutter. So he literally cut them with a highball glass and then got a fork, and he went around and made the little pattern around the outside. And, where there's a will, there's a way.
I'll bet that was a hit.
Everything was. The first time he met my family, it would have been really intimidating, but he literally, because he couldn't speak the language, his way to everyone's heart was through his food. He just wanted people to be happy, and they were. Seriously, I mean, he went to the Sydney fish markets and he bought every bit of seafood, fresh seafood, and he was then making insalata de mare, which is, fresh seafood, cold. It's served cold, drizzled with lemon. Oh my gosh, a mix of everything. So we had, prawns, mussels, clams, everything. And then, we had next to him, we moved to his ravioli caprese. Then, of course, he always has his signature torta caprese. So that's moving on. I would say the third dish with Capri in its name, torta caprese. Again, simple. Only 5 ingredients in the chocolate version. Okay, so there is the lemon version, but I'm going to get to that a little later, because that, by the way, if you go back to that other podcast, is another reason that I say is pivotal to how and why I am here. Go back to that podcast and hear why. But the traditional chocolate torta caprese has 5 ingredients, and literally they are sugar, almonds, butter, chocolate, and eggs. And this cake, I call it a crowd pleaser. First of all, it's the best dinner party cake because you actually make it the day before and it's better the next day. So it crusts on the outside and stays beautifully moist on the inside. And also, as you can prepare it the day before, it's like the perfect dinner party cake that's already ready. So you don't need to worry about dessert before your guests are coming over. And also, I would say it's just great because it lasts a long time. When I say it lasts a long time, it's not going to last a long time because you're going to eat it.
I can attest to that personally, having had 2 versions of that cake arrive at my hotel in Capri last year. There wasn't much left.
That's the best thing. It travels well. So in our cooking class, we often pack up the extra of what we've made in the cooking class, and you can eat it for a couple of days because it actually gets better by like day 3 or 4. It peaks because it's still that moist in the inside, but the nice texture contrast on the outside. So yes, it's delicious. It lasts a long time. And look, it's been a part of our relationship. I can tell you one story about the torta caprese that I absolutely loved. Quickly, when we first met in Capri before on the very first trip, I actually went away for a little bit, and Gianluca asked me. I went to Pisa to visit a friend, and Gianluca asked me to come back and go to Positano with him before I went back to Australia. I said, yes, I came. And it was so cute. He arrived with a torta caprese all wrapped up in foil. And he said, this is for your mum. And I said, oh, okay, firstly, this is beautiful. But my mum in Australia, I don't know how I'm going to transport this. And, I was leaving 3 days later. And I was like, and it's 3 days and da, da, da. And I said, and then also Australian customs are not going to let this through. Anyway, long story short, we decided to crack it. And over the 3 days, we went through it. And I say this is a very versatile cake because you can have this cake for breakfast with a cappuccino, or in the evening with a glass of Taurasi, which is the premium local red wine from Campania. So we enjoyed it both with the cappuccino and with the red wine in the evening. And I can attest that it's a very delicious cake, and Gianluca's version is especially amazing. I guess another story back in Australia. It was the day before I was due to go to hospital. And I was, in my bedroom stressing out about packing the bag, the hospital bag, checking off all the things that were in there. And I started smelling torta caprese, and I was like, what is going on? And I came out to the kitchen and I'm like, Gianluca, what are you doing? He had 3 torta capreses lined up to go into just in the oven. And I was like, what are you doing with 3 torta capreses? And he goes, Holly. I'm like, yes. He's like, okay, 1 for the doctor, 1 for the nurses. And he goes, and 1 for the family when Valentino arrives safe. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. I I would never have thought like that. But, the way, like I said, that food is literally like it's central to them. Like they think, and it's a way that he expresses himself. And I just thought it was beautiful. And I can tell you the hospital loved him.
Of course. It's probably a good thing that you'd chosen the names already, because otherwise the kids might have come out being called Torta Caprese after all that.
Literally, I have so many stories with the Torta Caprese. Valentino loves Torta Caprese, loves Torta
Came into the world smelling it and obviously has stayed with him since then.
Literally. Anyway, so they're my 3 most famous dishes that I believe, if you're on the island, that you should try. They're from Capri, they're world-renowned, and what better way to experience, culture and cuisine than the place where the dishes originate. Next, I'll say, because you did ask me to think about 6 dishes. Now, I've gone through 3, but I will say that the next I'm going to categorize, because there's so many delicious things to eat in Capri. So I'm going to say, eat anything lemon. You are on the land of lemons, the island of lemons. Lemons now form a part of, all the cuisine. It doesn't need to, not just, your primi piattis or your savory plates, your sweet plates, but also your drinks. And so, anything lemon, anything that celebrates that delicious, here I'll say again, like we're in a cooking class, when we start zesting lemon, oh my gosh, it hits you. It's that powerful. It's fragrant. It's so delicious. So here, look, famous dishes that I would say, pastas, savory dishes to eat involving lemon. We've got fettuccine limone, lemon risotto alla limone. Seafood pastas. In the restaurant, we had a very famous dish. It was called linguine marina piccola, which was a lemon-based sauce with fresh seafood. And then I'd say, moving on to desserts, of course, we have the Torta Caprese alla limone, so the lemon version of the chocolate and almond cake. Then we've got, limoncello tiramisu, delizia alla limone, a whole range of desserts that have lemon in them that celebrate the smell, the taste, the island vibrancy that shines through with the lemons in summer. And then, of course, we have limoncello. I mean, limoncello is the ingredient in a lot of these desserts, actually. So limoncello is the digestivo, the well-known digestivo on the island. And also, of course, different drinks and sorbets, etc. So we've got granitas, sorbets, gelatos, all that celebrate lemon. So look, I can recommend any sort of lemon dish while you're on the island, and it will be delicious.
So don't order the traditional tiramisu. Go for the lemon one, because that's the local version, right?
Well, yeah, they put their twist on everything. It's the same with babà. So babà is like a famous dessert in Naples, and they generally dip it in rum. But, here they might do the limoncello version.
Oh, my Lord.
They put a limoncello spin on everything.
Now you're talking babà dipped in limoncello. Oh, my goodness. That's outrageous.
No, it's delicious. I've tried that too. So I will say I've tried everything. I was unofficially, the taste tester in the restaurant. So that was good and bad. I had to do a lot more exercise. But no, it was a fun job. I'll say that. Now, next category, seafood, anything seafood. We're an island. So it's no surprises that even prior to the influx of tourism on the island, the cuisine was generally based upon vegetables that they grew and seafood that they caught, so fish that they caught. There is everything from scialatelli is the famous homemade pasta that you'll find on the restaurant menus, and that's generally served with a mixed seafood. So scialatelli with mixed seafood, all different seafood, clams, mussels, etc. And then we've got, for example, risotto alla pescatora, like I mentioned before, linguine marina piccola, octopus salads, insalata di mare. You have your saute mussels and clams, spaghetti alla vongole is a very summer favorite, especially down at the beach, or something light enough that, you can enjoy and then take a dip in the sea afterwards. I'll say also, I guess, some very specific seafood that you'll find in Capri that you may not find elsewhere, some delicacies. So I'll say pezzogna. Pezzogna is a fish that's, like I said, the local delicacy, and it's, hand-reeled from generally the waters between Ischia and Capri, but, also going down towards the Amalfi Coast. And this is generally cooked in 2 ways. One is, it's called acqua pazza, which means literally crazy water. which is like a very simple sauce. Again, they don't mix too many herbs, etc. in with it. It's literally just olive oil, prezzemolo, tomatoes, and a little bit of water. They also cook it with this baked in salt. So that's another way that you can cook this delicacy. One thing to know about in Capri, and I guess in other restaurants along the Amalfi Coast too, is that when you order fish, it's often by weight. Okay, so I think that confuses people a lot because me personally in Australia, I wasn't used to that when I first came to Capri, but they will generally show you the fish and then weigh it, and then it's usually priced as a per 100-gram price. And so this is to be mindful when you're ordering, okay? So other fish, particular types of fish that you'll find on menus, fresh fish, for example, is going to be spigola, orata, scorfano. These are the type of fish names that you will come to know and familiarize yourself when you're on the island. Another thing that's very typical of Capri is the local squid, and it's called totani. It's delicious. I would say that it's a different, more distinct and stronger flavor than squid that I'm normally used to with squid, but I would say it's still very local. It's very delicious, and they will usually do it ripieni, which means filled and stuffed and baked with a delicious filling of cheeses or potato or whatever they create. And another way is totani and patata, which is fried tomatoes and onions, and it's really good. But that's naughty. But yeah, these are the seafood. So like I said, if you're on the island, you're by the sea, you think of seafood. There's also a lot of dishes with salt cod, bacala, all sorts of different seafood dishes. So anyway, there we have it, seafood.
You're not going to be tasting a lot of these if you're only coming for the day, are you?
No. When I'm talking about how you visit the island, I know it's different for everybody. I understand everyone has a different way of traveling. However, look, to really get a feel for the island, its culture, its traditions, its food, its cuisine, you do need to stay a little longer. One of the most fascinating parts about it is that it is an island, that you have a different feel, a vibe. You're on island time. Now, to get into island time, you need to spend time. If you're rushing around on a day trip and you spend, and look, the statistics are very high that, 90, almost up to 90% of visitors for the day in Capri spend under 4 hours on the island. So, that's a lot of rushing around in a short period of time. And in that time, there's no way to feel island time, because the whole beauty of island time is that there is no time. How many times did I say time?
I don't know. I'm not sure. But, I think that really, having spent some time there last year, sorry, it's terrible. I would say one thing that really stood out for me was a real difference between Capri town and Anacapri, which is a totally different vibe. Most people would only probably see Capri town, and it's, obviously very chic and very zhizhi, and it's got the, all the designer stores and the piazzetta, and it's lovely. But I really preferred Anacapri because you've got all the whitewashed buildings, the beautiful flowers are dripping down everywhere, the cute little piazzas. I've been there on a day trip myself and just did not have the time to appreciate those contrasts at all.
Oh, 100% you're correct that Capri and Anacapri are two totally different worlds. And, in that where you stay on the island or where you visit will impact also your experience of the island. And I think we spoke a little bit about that when we were talking in our first podcast together. Capri is slow paced, but like Anacapri is beautiful. It's like a more community feel. There's, more families that live up here year round. As I think I might have mentioned maybe in the winter podcast that we did, there's 140 bustling restaurants in the summer season, in the low season, most of those close. And, at some points on the island, there may only be a smattering of restaurants, 4 or 5 restaurants, and most of them will be in Anacapri. I'm not biased. I've lived everywhere on the island. We lived in Capri, right in the center of Capri, and I experienced that for 4 years, 5 years. We were right in the center of Capri, and every day I walked through the piazza back and forth from our house to the restaurant. And, of course, it's a buzz, it's a vibe, it's great. But equally, I am so happy when I wake up in our villa garden in Anacapri, and I hear birds chirping. I don't hear the sounds that I heard before, which, are equally as exciting depending upon what you're looking for out of the holiday. I can say that when we moved to Anacapri, I said to Gianluca, why didn't you show me this before? And, to be realistic, in the summer season, if you have a business focused in Capri, especially in hospitality, it's very difficult to travel between Anacapri and Capri. I know it's a small island, but if you can imagine the queues for buses, there's not very many parking stations. They're expensive if you were to drive, and the traffic is not something that I particularly want to face every day. It is difficult to live in Anacapri and work in Capri, even for us especially, because we would have just a small gap between shifts of lunch shift and dinner shift in between cooking classes to go home and have a refresh or, a little sleep. And it wouldn't have been possible. But I understand now why he didn't show me, but I am extremely, extremely happy that we relocated to Anacapri. I feel much more at home here. I feel, the connection to the land, the fact that we are, growing our own food. Also the fact that to go into the center of town, I only have to walk 5-10 minutes. It's not very far. And then I'm in the hustle bustle. But then I come to our villa garden and I'm like, I'm in another paradise. It feels like so far away from the 28,000 people that visit per day in July and August. It's just I don't feel it the same way anymore. I feel now that I'm actually really embracing the island life and, how fortunate we are to live on a paradise island with fertile soil and beautiful blooming bougainvillea. It's just, and beautiful sunny summers and crystal blue water. What more can you love?
No, and I mean, it is. It's one of its real paradises. So being a local now, as you are there any local dishes that people should try, some hyper-local dishes?
Yes, there are. Now, definitely, that's my last category is, real home cooking, These are dishes that you may not see on the restaurant menus. They're more casual, very homely, comforting, they trace back to memories with your family on a beach picnic. And, I'll throw out a couple. So I mentioned before pizza spaghetti, did I think?
Yeah, pizza spaghetti.
Yeah, pizza spaghetti is a good one where you can eat it. It's easy to transport. So, we might make a pizza spaghetti if we're going down for a beach picnic or doing a hike because it's easy to eat and it's also keeps okay in the weather, etc., or transports well. So we have pizza spaghetti is one. Okay, I'll also say if you're
wait. You got to tell us more. What's the pizza spaghetti?
Okay, basically it is baked and fried spaghetti. You cook it and then you bake it and you put whatever ingredients you want in, in terms of a bit of egg. You could put salamis or you could put whatever you like in. And it's like you bake it, we serve it cold, so it's not a hot dish.
Oh, I'm picturing this, like you make a whole bunch of spaghetti and you put some red sauce in and you chuck a whole lot of things and then you...
No red sauce.
Oh, no red sauce.
No red sauce. No. So you'll boil the spaghetti, but we'll very al dente because then we're also going to bake it in a pan. So then we'll mix it with, we'll have some cheeses, eggs, salami, prosciutto, whatever you want to put with your spaghetti, your little pie. It comes out like a pie. Maybe I get it. Maybe people would get confused because they say pizza, but here a pizza also is referred to anything that's savory that you cut as a slice. So that leads also to another very famous, intricately local dish called pizza monocone. This also is very close to Gianluca's heart because this is also a dish that his father was working with the head chef that created this dish. He was there when they created it, and he was also very well known in Capri for making the most delicious pizza monocone. So Gianluca, his mum, actually makes this for me on Sundays specifically because I love it too. But it is a pastry pie. I mean, again, when we first started teaching people to make this in our cooking class, Gianluca's mum was horrified that we didn't make the pastry ourselves. But that is an exercise in itself, and that takes a whole day, the day before, to make the pastry. So we want people to make these dishes at home. So we just use some pastry, some puff pastry. And then we have delicious inside. We make mini meatballs. And then we have tomatoes, mozzarella, fried eggplant. We fry those meatballs. We put a basil, tomatoes, everything, all the deliciousness, and top it off with your pastry. So it is a very delicious pie. Again, it's something you don't serve piping hot. You maybe wait till lukewarm. We eat it cold as well. It depends what you prefer, but it is very, very delicious. So you won't find that on restaurant menus as such, but, we teach people how to make it. You can come and request it at our location, of course, if you're coming to a degustation meal or anything. Other dishes in the casa, I would probably finish off with saying, for example, I think we mentioned before, the Caprese caponata, which is different to a Sicilian caponata, so don't expect to receive that if you're thinking of that when you order it. It is like a cold salad, delicious salad with tomatoes, olives. They can put sottolio, eggplant, also the friselli bread that I was telling you about, and which is made specifically now for this dish. And, literally it's one of those dishes that his mum, Gianluca's mum, will tell me it's whatever you have in the cupboard or the fridge. And so it changes. I remember writing the recipe and I said, we were testing the recipes, and I went back the next day. I said to Nonna, okay, today we're doing caprese caponata. And then all the ingredients changed. I said, no. And she said, oh, Holly, okay, you need to change the recipe. So when I put in olives, I mean black olives, green olives, or this, and this. When I say tuna, I could have anchovies. I could have, when I say cheese, it could be mozzarella one day, next day provolone, the next day caciocavallo. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, sure.
But delicious regardless. So caprese caponata. Then a panini caprese. If you're on the run and you go to the delicatessen, you can order a caprese panini. This is actually part way of the story of how the Insalata Caprese came about. It was initially served with bread. And then the person who first ate it and said, no, it doesn't need the bread. And that's how it became the Insalata Caprese salad, just a standalone salad, which, by the way, is never a side dish. It's always a dish on its own. But going back to the panini version, it's just the salad in a delicious panini. I mean, what more can I say?
Oh, I'd eat one right now.
Yes, there are a few places on the island, different delicatessens that serve amazing panini capreses. Definitely reach out if you want to know. Insalata di riso caprese style. This is a cold rice salad, perfect for summer as well. So, okay, maybe I haven't mentioned a couple of dishes that are, I guess, in the home a lot. We do eat a lot of legumes, and there is, for example, a specific type of legume that is grown and traditionally grew in Capri, again, before the rise of tourism. And the Caprese still eat it, and we still do too. And I want to tell you, but I am so bad at pronouncing it. And I asked Gianluca 3 times before this podcast. I'm going to try kikaki.
Yeah, can you send that one to me? That'd be great.
I will. So we, again, that's a pasta that we'll eat with kikaki, and cecchi, so chickpeas, etc. We do eat a lot of legume. So recapping, when you come to Capri, the 3 most famous dishes of Capri have Capri's name in it. We've got Insalata Caprese, ravioli Caprese, torta Caprese. Then my 3 categories of dishes that you should definitely try when you come to Capri: anything lemon, anything seafood, anything local. That's what I would say.
That's pretty awesome to me. Amazing. And what I really noticed actually is that you can probably easily maintain a vegetarian diet very easily in Capri. Would I be right?
Yeah, 100%. Yes. There are so many vegetarian options, and equally there's many vegan options as well, because, the food, like I said, was based on the vegetables they grew here. It's very simple. It's simple food. Vegetables form, the simple ingredients are good seasonal produce. That is the most important thing. So, yes, gluten-free is also something that's very well understood. There are a whole range of different gluten-free options. So I know a lot of people ask me questions if there's a possibility we can offer gluten-free degustations or cooking classes. Yes, we can. Obviously, we're limited in terms of cross-contamination of gluten-containing ingredients is to only solely offering a gluten-free menu, etc. But look, it is something that's very commonplace to have all different options on a restaurant menu, for example, and also have a dedicated cooking station area for that. But obviously inquire before you go to a restaurant to make sure.
Well, I mean, I think that's the amazing thing about Italian cuisine. And I think when people get stuck on the pizza and pasta, it's missing out on a whole world of excitement. Okay, now, Holly, We now know that the best dishes on Capri are those made with freshly grown local ingredients from your garden and probably prepared by Gianluca. Maybe not yourself, maybe Gianluca, but
I believe that I could cook if I had to.
I think you can. You can. We're gonna test it out one day. But anyway, how can our listeners get in touch with you and organising a cooking class or a degustation so they can learn to make the dishes for themselves or at least taste them in the best possible version?
Of course, we would love to cook with you or welcome you to our Villa Garden Anacapri for any of our food experiences. The way you can get in contact with us is via email. My email, where I handle all the inquiries, is bookings@caprimichelangelo.com. And then look, of course, connect with us on social media. Even if you're not able to visit us, we love sharing what we do, our cuisine, our love of the island, the nature, the history, etc., on our social media channels. It's particularly on Instagram. I post a daily story, and when I can, I'll do a reel. And that is you can find us at Michelangelo_Capri. And then, of course, you can check out our offerings on our website at www.caprimichelangelo.com. We try to be as active as we can in terms of sharing our, like I said, our love of the island. And thank you, Katy, because this is another forum that we do that. So you can also check out what we do by the last 2 podcasts I've also recorded with Katy. Thank you very much for the opportunity, which was Come Away to Capri, episode 42, did you say?
Yep. 42 is the meaning of life, apparently. So...
And also we did a recording on Capri in the low season in winter. And, that is, again, something we love for people to come and experience is Capri in the low season. You were talking about island time before and getting to experience it. Look, in the hustle bustle of summer, it is rare to be able to experience, I guess, the real local life. Okay, so in the winter season, we have time to socialize more. You're more likely to be having long chats with locals, whether you're dining out or even asking for directions. In saying that, everyone, of course, Capri's hospitable, like all the locals are hospitable in summer or winter, but in winter you have more time. So it's a beautiful place to experience. Also you don't have the crowds and you've got the nature. The nature is the island is particularly amazing in all seasons. Different colors, different smells, different blooming flowers, different produce. And, you could visit Capri, over and over again and still discover new things. I've said that before. I say that every single day I am still discovering. Gianluca will take me on a walk I haven't, down a laneway I'd never been down, or, we will go on a hike of something I've never seen, or just notice details I didn't. And look, I've been here 10 years and I still love it. And people often ask me, they're like, how can you live on such a small island? Well, I don't feel it's small. To me, in our little, like our garden, our little world, I am completely content. That's what I'll say.
Well, you went from the one big island of Australia to our little one. You can take the girl out of an island, but you can't take the island out of a girl. Well, I do feel like an island person, even though it's very big, because you're always somehow connected to the sea. Somehow we're always living by the sea, and I think it's I feel that connection. So you're lucky to have it so close by and such a beautiful, one of the world's most incredible environments. But before I let Holly go, Holly and I were chatting before, and she was mentioning that they've had a lot of bookings. Like bookings are going crazy this year. So if you're coming to Capri this year, please get onto your bookings ASAP and sort them out, because they might get sold out.
Obviously, post-COVID, in the post-COVID world, last year was extremely busy. We weren't ready, and much of the island wasn't prepared. And the reason being is, it was only in April and May that when, international travel really got the go-ahead. I mean, we were still having restrictions in terms of, mask wearing, et cetera, in early last year. So, again, this year, of course, taking precautions, et cetera, it's all go again. So 2023, we're noticing already, it's January. We are very, very almost fully booked for May and June. And, now we're receiving reservations right up until October. And look, I'm going to say one thing. We are a small island. I mentioned before, we're only like 10 square kilometers. And, a lot of people visit. If you have bucket list items or especially unique or different experiences that you really want to experience while you're here on your vacation, definitely plan. Definitely book in advance. It's going to be difficult to get like last minute tables at restaurants, especially, in Capri town and Anacapri. I think, definitely it would be in your best interest to plan, especially if you're thinking about taking a vacation, maybe with a tour, because I know Katie's also planning a tour to Capri. And if you do join that tour, I know a lot of those experiences you're going to be doing on that in terms of eating food is some of those with us, and you get to experience our local produce that we've just been talking about, but also you get to experience a lot of other local artisan activities, again, that things that you might not otherwise ordinarily be able to experience. For example, learning how to make your own sandals, those types of experiences, visiting local artisans, going on your own private luxury boat ride. Those sorts of experiences definitely are ones that you do need to plan and you do need to look in advance. But if you're looking for a tour, an organized tour, Katie, definitely now I'm passing it on to you.
Well, of course, I only collaborate with the best people. So if anyone wants to spend some extended time with Holly and Gianluca and hear a little bit more about this story and visit their garden in person, that's definitely included in our tour Capri. So it's honestly a very special place and they're very special people, as you've heard on the podcast. So I do hope some of you can join us there and just experience the really magical side of Capri. That's not the rushing around. That's not the designer shops that you can see pretty much anywhere in the world. This is a truly, truly local experience with local people and local flavours. So, really hope everyone has a chance to experience that for themselves one day. Holly, thank you so much. Grazie mille. It's always a pleasure. And we'll have to think of some more topics. Anyway, until next time, Holly.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, like I said, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Now, it's always a pleasure to talk to Holly, who I met via this podcast and only in person for the very first time last year. I love her passion for her adopted home, its culture, history and food, and I'm absolutely thrilled to collaborate with her and Gianluca to bring you a truly special experience spending time on Capri, discovering the island. Much more than a tour, we're going deep into local culture to discover what makes it truly special beyond the spectacular scenery everyone is bewitched by. Now, when you join our very special small group experience, you'll meet the locals of Anacapri, hear their music and stories, dine in a lemon grove and sail the seas, ducking into inlets and coves to admire the waves crash against the rocks and birds soar overhead. You'll also learn to make the dishes of the island too and just experience the true magic of Capri. Now, these experiences aren't always open to individual travellers and larger groups, which is why they are exclusive in the Untold Italy way. I've put a link to our Capri tour experience and, of course, the details on how to contact Michelangelo Capri on our website at untolditaly.com/160 for episode 160. And I hope you can join us in Capri because it is truly magical. Now, thanks for your ongoing support of Untold Italy. We truly appreciate all of you, our listeners, joining us from around the world. We'd love it if you help spread the word so we can reach more Italy-loving travellers just like you. And the best way that you can do that is by leaving us a 5-star rating or review on your favourite podcast app or forwarding this episode onto a friend who also loves the magic of Italy. That's all for today. Next week, we're getting all romantic for San Valentino or St. Valentine's Day and talking about weddings, elopements and all sorts of celebrations in Italy. But until then, it's ciao for now.
The Untold Italy podcast is an independent production. Podcast editing, audio production and website development by Mark Hatter, production assistance and content writing by the other Katy Clarke. Yes, there are two of us. For more information about Untold Italy, please visit untolditaly.com.